She's the director and co-founder of the Native Foodscape Foundation, based in Delhi. She holds honorary and advisory positions at several prestigious international institutes. Please, welcoming you to the stage. Kuntalika Kumbhakar, who's a senior development sector leader with 26 years of expertise in empowering women's collectives, driving transformative change across social, economic, and political spheres. Her work spans key areas such as savings and credit, farm-based livelihoods, natural resource management, and gender equity. During a long association with PRADAN, Kuntalika has held strategic roles at the organization and currently leads the Nutrition Center of Excellence. Welcome, Kuntalika. Dr. Rengalakshmi is the Executive Director of MSSRF, where she leads area operations and programs. She has an academic background in agriculture, and with over 30 years of hands-on experience, she's an interdisciplinary development researcher and field-level practitioner at the interface of science and society. Welcome. And now, Ayushi Singh, who's the moderator for this session. She's a climate expert with over 15 years of experience in digital transformation of food systems, with a strong focus on strengthening women's leadership and entrepreneurship at the grassroots. Currently, she leads the Sathi Climate Initiative, working with 470 CSOs across Uttar Pradesh to advance women-led climate action and climate-smart agriculture. A very warm welcome to our panelists and the moderator. The session is all yours. Thank you.
To follow that we're all actually having this dialogue. So congratulations to all of us for being here. And what an honor, once again. I mean, I had the privilege of knowing some of you beforehand. I'm getting to meet some of you for the first time. And we've had a bit of a chat before we came into the hall. And we were all just trying to understand what do we mean by women in systems. We have three very, very powerful women here in food systems who've experimented, learned and documented and presented solutions and theories. And we also have three women who are champions of whatever sectoral expertise they're bringing in their education, in their experiences and all of that. And that perspective to be put here on mainstream, I think is a big win for all of you guys. We're already there, right? So I'll probably like to start off with talking to you, Kuntalika, and trying to understand what is the landscape that you have been working in with a very, very strong women-centric approach. What kind of challenges in the background, of course, have always been there, documented and discussed. But what are you seeing happening on the ground in terms of sustainability with women in whatever landscapes you've worked in?
Yeah, that's a vast question. I think most of us here are working in the Central India tribal region. Many of you are working, and the topography and the challenges are quite well known. And if you look at it, especially looking at the food system, which is about agriculture, livestock, and fisheries, and the landscape. So it's very challenging in terms of the kind of climate challenges adding to the woes. And if you look at, for example, if you just have a peep in the Jharkhand and look at the domestic helps and a lot of the laborers working here in Delhi itself, you will find a large population from Jharkhand. So there is already a feminization of agriculture happening in these states. So the burden of it just comes down to the women, and ill-prepared, ill-equipped, and also marginalized in terms of control over decision, control over resources. So they are just as farm laborer is the more of the identity from which they are managing. But there is a scope there where we are working on those areas. I would say it's very complex. At one hand, dealing with the landscape development itself is very complex, where you do with the biodiversity, you do with the land, water management, soil fertility, everything. And on the other hand, you have a challenge of balancing the gender interventions. And many a times, the easy solutions of technology and solutions of land development, that grabs our attention. And a lot of resources invested on that. But if you look at the other side, which is equally important because they are the equal stakeholder in the whole landscape development, but the investment on that part is very, very less. And it's not into so much of focus. We talk a lot, and it has reached a point, many a times I find, is the tokenism. So really, if we want to look at it, so inclusivity is a word we often use. Today also we used a couple of times, no, inclusivity. But I think we have reached a stage when we have to look at it from the gender transformative approach, not only the inclusivity. So that's how I would look at that landscape to work on. Thank you.
Amazing. Mainstreaming inclusion as a part of the design, not as an afterthought. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Ayushi, yes, what do you think?
Basically, when we are considering women in the farming systems or in the food systems, again, as Kuntalika pointed out, it is very, very diverse, both within as well as across the subsectors. The differences are very huge. That heterogeneity has to be acknowledged first. So when we are talking about the heterogeneity in the context of food systems, if you are taking agriculture, in agriculture there are, in the cropping component or farming component alone, we could able to see the huge differences, both in terms of access to resources, then the services, activities, and also at the end of the impact domains. If you cut across the food system, the whole value chain, the women farmers' participation, women laborers' participation, you could see a vast difference. How do we acknowledge that differences? So we need to have a deeper study in each of the sectors to understand it and design the programs. That is one. And when we are coming to fisheries sector, that is very closely aligned, where more than 95% of the women are in the processing. Post-harvest, that is their role. But in the remaining 10%, they are also into a kind of an active fishing, especially in the backwater area, where the mangrove-rich resources area or tidal marshes, wherever you can see participation. But the access to resources as well as the technologies for them are very, very limited. So that makes them more vulnerable. And in the context of climate change, it is going again deeper. So we recently had a study on women and heat stress, how it is getting affected. So across sectors, we could able to see the differences, especially in terms of their health, in terms of their economics, in terms of their violence and stress. So there are multiple dimensions to that. And similarly, when we are coming to the livestock sector, and again, the small-scale livestock sector has been operated by women. Completely, the whole value chain is handled by them. So what support services, policies, enabling environments are we creating? So if at all, if it is created, and how it is getting connected to the deeper level. So those things are very, very crucial when we are talking about food systems in general.
Yeah, I love how you've connected the diversity and the complexities as also opportunities. Because on one hand, there's been debate about non-land owning women. At the same time, just by a micro flash of information, you've showed all of these other opportunities that are related to non-land activities, surely highlighting the high number of workforce, if nothing else, yes, that is women in the food systems. And therefore, how does the math fit in, right, for everybody here looking for investments? Fantastic. Chubba, it's a very diverse set of experience, layered with your scientific understanding and knowledge. Please, we want to know.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think both Kuntalika and Rinka has made basis and explained very well. I come from Nagaland, although I'm based in Delhi, and a lot of my experience is in the Northeast. So, I'll just share my experiences from that context. And if you look at Northeast food system landscape, it's very diverse, and it's arising from the diversity in terms of ecological and cultural, diversity that is there amongst the various tribal communities that are there. And women, actually, if I just look at women farmers, they actually don't play the role of only as farmers, but they play the role in the entire food system. They are just, like, in a way, I should say, caretaker of food systems. So, they, of course, just like anywhere else in India, the land ownership and a lot of entitlements lays with men. Women don't have, but if you look at most of the tribal societies in Northeast, women decide what to grow. Of course, agriculture is rice-based, so rice is it's there. You have to grow rice every year, but along with that, they grow a lot of vegetables and herbs and many things. So they decide what to grow, when to grow, how much to grow. And then they are mostly subsistence farmers, but they play a very important role in marketing, marketing the produce. Whenever there is any surplus produce, because vegetables, if there's surplus, you cannot keep it for long, so you have to sell it, so they sell. So they also decide what to sell, when to sell, and where to sell. And if you go to most of the markets in the hilly areas in Northeast, you will see only women. The locals are only women who are selling vegetables. There will be men, but they will not be the natives from there. They will be somewhere else. So market role. And of course, like anywhere else, they decide the household food. What to cook, what is nutritious, what is good from whatever they have, and seasonal. So they go beyond this, from farm to fork. But just beyond this, women are also healers because they use a lot of herbal medicines. And they use those remedies at home, and also they give it to the near and dear ones. And also they are, I call them experts or scientists because they know. I mean, last month in November, I was in Nagaland visiting the farm. They had just harvested everything. I went, and this woman farmer, she just picked up, a little bit of soil, and she said, this soil is not fertile, so we are not going to grow any vegetables on this patch of the land. So they know. It's just that, of course, they may not be able to explain it in a systematic, scientific way, but they know the result without going through that process which we normally do, right? We take ages to know that. So that's there. And another very important thing, especially in the current society, there is no social, that social coherence is slowly diminishing. Food is very important, especially in rural areas, because there's an exchange that takes place. And women, again, through the exchange of food with farmers, with neighbors and relatives, that also helps in building social cohesion. So the last is like my question, which I ask myself and I ask everybody is, we come up with a lot of new technologies and interventions, which is very important. We need to have adaptive changes. But does these adaptive changes, are these conscious of the distinctive role that women play? So that's an important question we have to ask. Thank you.
That's brilliant, amazing. I mean, all of it seems like it's translating into Excel sheets and data for me. I come from a data sort of an orientation. I always think of it like that. So information is data. Planning is data, resource management is data, sustainability parameters is data, and seems like these practitioners have already been solving it with that, except that, as you rightly said, the definitions, the vocabulary, the taxonomy is different, and to some extent, of course, accessibility is still a challenge, right? We were talking about that earlier today. Having said that, I feel like you've highlighted both beautifully the complexities as well as the opportunities, as I was rightly saying, because you've all built models, you've all executed models with women leadership on the ground, with financial sustainability, with climate and food systems in mind. You've already done that. We were talking about the current scenario, the opportunities that you're saying. And as Chuba, as you were rightly saying, to now start designing, if we were to now keep gender in the mainstream, if we were to now start designing, what opportunities are you seeing and what would you recommend? I mean, maybe Kuntalika, you can start with you.
Yeah. I think what you and Rengalakshmi has pointed out, actually food systems is a very, very good lens to look at things in an integrated way, which just starts from production to consumption. And in this whole cycle, there are many, many areas that we can really work around. So for production, we kind of focus on whatever design comes, the first and foremost design brings the men in the forefront and the design happens. So look at the kind of capacity building, the training, the technical knowledge, the kind of programs that we design, those are all geared towards the men farmers and large farmers. Let us also consider in this changing scenario, the land holdings are going smaller and smaller and smaller. If I have 2 sons, tomorrow it is going to be divided into 2 and it is going to be more smaller. no daughters, going to no daughters, you know. So that's another whole, I would say, especially the Santal Pargana Tribal Act and these land acts, they don't allow transfer of land to women. So that's still being followed. Even though Hindu Succession Act does say it doesn't happen. So that is again another area. Now, one can talk a lot about each of it, but if you look at the production in terms of the food systems, what is it that we can do is actually equip them to take that decision, control the decision. That she is saying that in Northeast it's happening, but we know in the Central India tribal region, it doesn't work like that. The control over decision, resources, access is not there. So simple solutions of, number one, are we gearing the technical knowledge, know-hows, aligning to the way the women are in, their education level. Most of those women farmers, their education level is in. If we do that, I think we would be giving them a power of knowledge, power of information. So we have women farmer FPOs. So all women, no men. And in the FPO world, I think PRADAN is one organization who is doing all women FPOs, and there are struggles. So, you know, FPO, we talk about business development. Now tell me, we spent 2 years in the MBA courses and all that learning business development. We never think that how am I going to translate this complex business development, planning, financial review, revenue. So how do you really unpack it for the women? And it is a challenge which we have. All the course materials you look doesn't consider them starting. And these are the women who are maybe 5th standard pass or just knows how to, but wisdom-wise, intelligence-wise, knowledge-wise, as you said, they are the experts. And they are living the life. They are the best person to take the decisions and the call. So that is another area. We can also look into this, see the control over access, people say it's a long, gender में आप लोग तो ये इतना दिन से बात कर रहे हैं control over resources, access over, access to resources, but ये तो क्या होता है इससे? इससे ये होता है कि उसको, she learns new things, she can take the decision then and there. यहाँ वापस men के पास जाकर के decision लेना होता है, closure नहीं होता है. Now you can do small things like many government schemes, we have done this also. Primary user of the schemes like irrigation systems or agriculture equipments, anything, let the primary user become the women. Horticulture plantations, huge plantation, let the primary user become the women, and in writing, in the scheme, in the name of the paper. She may not hold the land, but having that scheme in her gives her a lot of leeway. So those kind of things. Then we can also facilitate joint land holding. We had experienced it in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Things shift differently. Why not, have small incentives to promote that? It doesn't take much, but small incentives. Like we know in Gujarat, that registration fee, but that is about the property. But can we think about the small older women farmers, something around do like that? Then another important part that Rengalakshmi focused on is that we have a lot of technology coming in, The whole natural farming conversation we have a study which says that the hours of work has increased for the women. But in the whole natural farming conversation, I hardly hear, it is unsaid, or sometimes brushed under the carpet. And that is the major problem, it is not moving ahead. Until and unless we look at it head on, it is not going to help. Because you're not creating the solution who is actually working in that whole natural farming sector. She is the one who is loaded with creating all those bioproducts at her home, collecting everything, and whole manual management, everything is under her. But we are not talking about her problems. We are brushing on it. So that is another area. I think if natural farming or organic farming, whatever name, regenerative agriculture, so many names, but they are similar, or I don't want to go into the scientific debate, it hardly matters for the farmers. So we can look into it from a very, very important perspective for whom we are developing it, that if we don't resolve this barrier, it is not going to work. So tailoring the new innovations, technology, whatever you're bringing in from the perspective of the women is very, very important to really break through and move ahead. So I can keep on going speaking about it, but I don't want to take anyone. I'd like to hear from others.
I am tempted to take notes, not only for the conversation, but for what we do on the ground. Please, Doctor, tell me, what do you think?
Yes. As Kuntalika pointed out, the technologies are very broad. From production, pre-production starts with the seed to till it reaches the consumers. But when we are talking about the ongoing crisis as well as the advancements, the digital platforms play a key role in transforming women's participation in across the value chain. And that needs to be again understood with the context, and that needs to be facilitated. So I can quote 2-3 examples from different subsectors. For example, if you take agriculture, in agriculture, the major gap, the farmers could not able to, especially women farmers, could not have an access to the plant health information, both in identification of the particular problem, whether it is a pest or disease or nutrient deficiency, and getting a right advisory. Especially in the context of natural or organic farming, the advisories are a little complex and it is not available right now. It is tested by own experience and learning from other farmers. Those are all sources. But getting the right diagnosis is a crucial part. Again, given the context of heterogeneous cropping as well as the farming systems, each farmer has their own needs. So in that context, we introduced the concept called plant clinics, where it supported farmers to get the right diagnosis. And in the diagnosis, they were understood, facilitated to understood how the complex problem, how it is system related, how we can connect with the several management practices. And their dependence on the input dealers. So that is another complication. And so those services at a decentralized level help them to get into the context. Otherwise, that plant health information is completely a men domain, and always they depend on men.
It's also very top-down.
Yeah, very top-down, and it requires different kind of skills.
While you're on that subject, I know you've been working with the CSOs on building this bottom-up decentralized intelligence. Would you just try to throw some light on that?
CSOs in the sense like including farmer producer organization and self-help group federation, how those organizations' capacity can be built to run those plant clinics, to get connected with different institutions, because sometimes when you are running plant clinics, you need experts to diagnose. So in that context, your linkages with the experts from research institutions are very, very crucial. So how do we build their capacity to link them, and the institutions trust over these CSOs in facilitating that process. Both are important there. Otherwise, the process, maybe once when you are there, it will work, but long-term sustainability may not be ensured. This is one. And second, when we are coming to the digital technologies, especially when we are talking about the small-scale animal husbandry or dairy or goat rearing communities, their access to the digital infrastructure, especially the small phones, are very, very difficult. And the household they have, but they don't have access to it much of the times, especially for learning purposes, or getting information or getting advisories from different stakeholders. So in one of our intervention, we included phone cost also into the loan when they are buying animals. So it was a small resistance from the bank managers, but we could able to convince them with the evidences of their repayment history, and also as a kind of a collective, they are a collateral security provided. So that worked well. At a time, more than 1,000 women had an access to the small phone. So the small phone in their hands, they were getting into a kind of a learning. We facilitated that process on how the health management practices and how the veterinary care services can be linked. So that made a big difference among them to quickly convert their learning into practice, and improve their repayment capacity as well as increase their sizes of the herds they have. This is one example from that side. Another example with the fishing community, women again. Women, they were into processing sectors. They were into a kind of a small scale vending business, or some of them make into a dry fish, sell it kind of context. So when we are bringing these digital technologies to them, they get into a kind of an social media. So different food products at the traditional ones, they could able to immediately making into a YouTube or Instagram. So they get into a kind of a larger profiles. And the second, again, the payments. Earlier they used to have a kind of an transaction, cash transaction. Now it is made into a kind of an UPI payment. So initially there were struggles among them, but the hand-holding, the necessary support, and learning by doing. So those are all small things, but made a big difference. So now they are into a kind of an responsible business, especially when they are making the dry fish. They are using solar dryers, and the quality with FSS certification. So these are all other steps. With the small technologies, we can make a big difference in improving the food system components.
I mean, it's amazing how many, just through digital access, so many solutions and pathways of empowerment I'm already seeing. I mean, social media and its uptake, digital uptake, just throwing statistics around again. I mean, of late, just the digital uptake of women in rural section across India, in many states is higher than that of men, but even the average is very, very close to being equal. So that's very promising. But at the same time, all of these livelihood-centric data usages, digital usages, information exchange, the way it's changing power dynamics, I think it just opens up. Again, I will always try to connect it with income and livelihoods of sustainability. So we're opening up that workforce lens in a very, very different way. I wish we could deconstruct patriarchy in general and start from there. But looks like, Chubba, with the privileges that we have of the learnings there, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing that probably the rest of the nation can, learn from?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I have only spoken about the good thing, but of course that doesn't mean that there are no challenges. There is a lot of challenges that women, even in places like Northeast, where I see in many areas they have some sort of certain degree of freedom and empowerment, but they also face a lot of issues. And one of the thing, I agree with Kuntalika, for example, in terms of we need to have, context-specific solution for all. So we cannot say this works and this doesn't work or something like that. But one thing which I see more than the technological and policy intervention is that women need to be sensitized. We need to give them training, which my co-panelists also have mentioned that, because I'll give you an example. Like if you go to the market in Northeast India, we see women in the local market, women selling traditional produce, but slowly that's diminishing. Slowly that's getting replaced by cash crops, which they are themselves growing because it gives them good revenue, and slowly they're selling beans and carrots and a lot of things. Because they think that gives them better value, and they're doing it with all the good reasons. But we also have to tell them that these traditional crops which they're selling, that's more valuable in many sense, So it's very important. Another thing is, I'm not a social scientist, but I'm speaking this way. So, it's very important for us to recognize their contribution. It's very important for us to let them know the value of what they are doing, even the value of the little bit traditional crops that they're selling to food systems. Because many a times they feel they have a little bit of reservation about selling. They are not proudly selling it, They do it more as a means of livelihood, sustenance. And so we need to bring in that pride. And that pride can come only when we recognize and we inform them and sensitize them that this is very important, especially under the current context that we have, whether it's changing developmental context as well as also the climate and environmental context. That's very important. So this is something that I have seen, and this also is going to really help in bringing in more and more young people in the food systems. We are seeing now, and I think 2023 Millet, International Year of Millet, whichever perspective we have, but one thing it has made a difference is that I have seen post that a lot of young people entering into the millet food system, whether by growing or selling or all sorts of things. So we need to bring those type of changes.
This is so promising. There's something in UP that we've been doing with Ma and Mati Ke Lal, yeah? So it's a generational combination because the kids are the one who come back from the cities and then help their mothers to do the plantations and weed management and all of that. And this generational combination of the restrictions that a woman currently faces, accessibility, mobility, all of that, maybe digital and otherwise literacy also, combined with the efforts of the youth who are being able to bridge that gap. Working together with the mother as a caretaker, manager, all of that also. I love how you're changing definitions of women at the rural hub, I will call it the rural industry, as managers and not just practitioners because they can be better decision makers. I don't know how much more time we have. It feels like if you had to tell all of us here who are solution builders, providers, integrators, collaborators, we've been looking at including women in food systems as a part of the solution, especially tech solutions. If we had to make them co-creators, especially in a time like today where SDGs are already defined, which have to be aligned, our ESG parameters, in the previous session, right, we were talking about the ESG parameters that should be made by Indian markets. We're looking at a front-facing, bottom-up approach to defining what it should be. So if you had to endorse, include, or encourage women in food systems to be a part of this co-creation narrative, what would you suggest people to do? What would you ask them to start including in their practices?
I think we are at a very nice juncture. I would say an excellent opportune juncture we are here today. The UN is declaring year 2026 as International Year of Women Farmers. So it's going to create a huge opportunity for us to build this and actually leverage this 1 year of opportunity and combine the kind of schemes and the programs and the gaps which is not helping the women to move ahead. You know, identifying and talking about those gaps openly is something to start with. And in that, one thing that people don't talk about, when we as development organizations are also very, very responsible. You see all the development programs all being loaded up on the women. So women led this, women led that, women led this, everything women led. Now, where are the men going and what is the burden they are sharing? Are they only controlling and doing the whipping? What is it happening? So I am really worried about this. And we are loading her up without reducing the other load, which is the care work. A woman spends, studies shows that women spend 6 to 7 hours normally on this care work. And I don't need to define care work for all of you. You all know about it very well. And you have a sick person, you have a very elderly person, it will go up to 8 hours. So now she only has 24 hours, 8 hours gone in care work, rest hours comes down to, only she can reduce and control her rest hours, which is reducing significantly, zero leisure. We don't talk about leisure for her, but we are not doing anything to improve the other angle. So we can, in Narega, initially there was this whole daycare system that was a part of it, but I didn't see it coming so strongly. Why not similarly, when we design any program, have it embedded? No, we are talking about everything. Why do creches are required only in towns and the cities? Why not good creches required at the rural? Are they not working? Are they working less than us? Let us question us also and see what kind of programs we can bring in to support these women to become farmers, controllers, managers, decision makers, and give them that space and recognition. I like this very idea that you have said, Juba, that recognition is, I think this International Year of Women Farmers is a recognition beginning. We can start from there. Another is that I see this whole digital education. You know, your examples are so well said. Nowadays also, the women, even if she has mobile in her name, you know, even the Pashu Shakis and the Krishi Sakis, the control is still not with her. So a lot of digital studies, you can look into that. Because the education has not been provided to them to optimize the use of that machine. No digital education, digital literacy has been speaking for a long while, but there is no concrete design program to do that. Then financial literacy, you know, we're talking about us also as financial literacy is a problem for us also. No, we think we are so much of a gender. I don't feel that I am such a strong gender person because I still don't have the required financial literacy. Let us look into that with the women also. So we have done a small control over income study and we have seen the women who had more access to this digital, they have more control over the income. So more control over their income sources. So that is a one way to look. So we have to identify 2-3 key areas and blocks which can shift the entire narrative. In that, one is that time poverty. We really look into it genuinely, that where we can help her to manage this time poverty. And in nutrition, I having long conversation with the women. No, we say that nutrition food बनाइए आप सतरंगी थाली दीजिए उनको, सतरंगी थाली बनाने में कितना टाइम लगेगा, उसका टाइम उसके पास कहाँ है, जब वो जाकर के लेबर का काम भी करेगी, हम नहीं बात करते हैं, उनको हम ज्ञान देते हैं. So we are not talking about this. Let us find out, co-create solutions with them. The researchers, the program designers need to reach out to these women to actually find out what is the gap and how they will come up with the solutions. As you said, they are the experts. They will say how I could be helped. And let us look into it. So I would say let us change the narrative of finding solutions, not sitting at desks and committees and all that, but also go out to them. That would be my input.
How far-sighted and near-sighted that is at the same time, because that's what is happening on the ground in many places. It's very promising. Last thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, the co-creation, again, it is our participatory. It's a very commonly we use, but when you are getting into the process, there are many things. One is we as researchers or facilitators, we need to de-learn many things. And also patience. The whole process needs a lot of patience. Each and every step you need to consider the other other party's interest, the other party's capacity, and their interest.
It's almost like you're defining the principles of sustainability agroecology also.
Yes.
It sounds pretty much the same, participatory and decentralized. And,
Yes.
Managed by the nurturers, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'll 2 points quickly. One is, SDGs, we have only 4 years to go, but, in SDGs, well-being is very important. And well-being is not only about physical well-being, but the mental, emotional. And these days, especially after COVID, we know we are all familiar with mental. And many a times what I see is, and it's not only with women farmers, but male farmers, everybody, all the farmers, or all of us, when we work, if we are satisfied, if we enjoy what we do, and if we know that whatever we are doing, has some substance, it's valuable, then even if we have to work whole day without sleeping, we are happy, at least emotionally, mentally, and we are more productive. And it's very important. And that's where, as I said, women doesn't need to be taken care of, given a special consideration, but they just need to be recognized for the work that they are doing. When we understand what they are doing, then it's easier for us to come up with policies or solutions on that. And so that's very important aspect. So this recognition is what I want to end with in terms of, that women and, I was forgetting the second point quickly, as Kuntalika mentioned, that this year is very important because it's an international year of women farmers, and so there will be a lot of opportunities for everybody, for policymakers, for researchers, for development workers, everybody. There will be a lot of opportunities as we do that. For example, as a researcher, when we go and try to do research when we go to the field, try to also understand women's perspective rather than taking only a generic perspective. So that can help us in understanding the context in a much more holistic way, which will help inform policymakers, which will help inform development of technologies, because every policymaker or technology makers cannot go to the ground. So that's very important. Thank you.
That's amazing. I mean, just to summarize very quickly, I think again, I'm correlating it with the previous session, because whenever we talk about sustainability, we talk about sustainability in terms of financial viability, social integrations, SDGs, right, so to speak. We've talked about changing the role of women as managers, as planners and micro-planners, right? Because anyway, we are talking about sustainability as a micro-plan of agroecology, agroeconomy at the grassroots level. We've talked about the potential of the access of information through digital linkages, through digital literacy, financial literacy, already happening in many, many places with very good results, whether it was connected to livelihood, as you said, or just, the sense of pride that is coming with it. That makes me think of the visibility of data sets within SDGs that come from women in food systems. I think that sounds like a great opportunity. And the asset that we have been all ignoring is the intelligence that's on the ground. How do we start from there? How do we decentralize those knowledge hubs, add them to the scientific intelligence that's coming with innovations, and spread them again, in which you say CSOs have a very critical role to play among all the other ecosystem stakeholders. So I think that it's sort of like a divine design that we all had this conversation right before the year of the women farmers, at a stage where policies and conversations are happening. Kudos to Folu for bringing it to this stage for this conversation, so that actual actions of linkages can happen. So I thank you all for not only the work that you've done in the past, but for bringing it till here and for giving us guidance on how to take this forward. I really enjoyed talking to you all, and I hope that we get to do excellent work together. Thanks a lot, everybody.